Madam Speaker, the President of the United States. Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Putin's wrong, we are ready.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Light will win over darkness. Putin may circle key with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Folks, go get him! And we will! Go get him! And we'll be stronger a year from now!
Putin's wrong, we are ready. Now's the hour. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. That's why the NATO alliance was created, to secure peace and stability. We prepared extensively and carefully. We are united and we stayed united. Putin is now isolated from the world more than he's ever been. We're cutting off Russia's largest bank, preventing Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble. Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who built billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Putin's wrong, we are ready.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Light will win over darkness. Putin may circle key with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Folks, go get him! And we will! Go get him! And we'll be stronger a year from now!
On this night, on our 245th year as a nation, I've come to report on the state of the nation, the state of the union. And my report is this: the state of the union is strong because you, the American people, are strong. France, Germany, Italy, United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, even Switzerland. The United States and our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. This is our moment to meet and overcome the challenges of our time, and we will.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Putin's wrong, we are ready.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Light will win over darkness. Putin may circle key with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Folks, go get him! And we will! Go get him! And we'll be stronger a year from now!
We are praying for the proud people of Ukraine. God bless them all. As everyone understands, this horrific disaster would never have happened if our election was not rigged and if I was the president. It's a lot of bullshit, that's what it is. I was with Putin a lot. It's a good thing to get along with people, not a bad thing. You can be very tough and get along. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. Yesterday, reporters asked me if I thought President Putin was smart. I said, of course he's smart. Putin is playing Biden like a drum. The problem is not that Putin is smart. Real problem is that our leaders are dumb.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Putin's wrong, we are ready.
Go get him! And we will! Go get him!
Light will win over darkness. Putin may circle key with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Folks, go get him! And we will! Go get him! And we'll be stronger a year from now!
Now listen.
And now, Matt Wright and Spike Cohen.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. For Spike, he is not a black Republican. Cohen, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
It's true. I'm not a black Republican. Folks, thanks so much for tuning into this
very true
amazing episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. Why is it amazing? Because I forgot to pause this graphic behind me, and I don't need to do. Hold on a second, because that's going to be a bit much.
We didn't put up the warning at the beginning of flashing lights may cause seizures.
Yes, there we go. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining this amazing episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. Why is it special? Because it's not my fellow Americans. It's the Muddy Waters of Freedom. And it's because you're a part of it too. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment and follow and do all the things. And be sure to share this right now. I want you to give the gift of Muddy Waters today. Kids love it. Oh, also, if you are subscribing on YouTube, be sure not just to hit subscribe, but hit the bell next to it, because I want your phone to explode with notifications every single time we go live. Give the gift. Boom, boom, boom. Matt?
First and foremost, allow me to thank Justin for the kava that I'm drinking on today's episode.
And allow me to thank Le Bleu for this delicious water that I am drinking from water.
Bulavanaka.
Oh, I'd also like to thank myself for sauteing this delicious dish of barramundi, which is a type of fish. Or barramundi, it's a type of sea bass. And what's it called? Collards. I've made collards and barramundi.
Barramundi. You made collards, huh?
Yeah, collards. I ate a lot of them.
You're not a black Republican.
Oh, wow. I'm not a black Republican. Okay?
That's the key.
That's the key. I'm not a black Republican. Okay? We're not a monolith. This episode, of course, is brought to you by the Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus, the fastest growing and second largest caucus in the Libertarian Party. Become a part of the takeover. The takeover that is taking over. That's what takeovers do. The Libertarian Party. By becoming a member today, go to the Facebook group Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus to join today. And if you'd like to just become a fun person that has Waffle House Caucus stuff, then go to the Muddy Waters Media Store at muddywatersofreedom.com/store, and you can buy all sorts of great stuff there, including a Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus button and a Libertarian Party Waffle House Caucus t-shirt. The Gravy King. Defy the power and stitches and glitches. Defy the power and stitches and glitches. Make the best tumblers ever. Like literally ever. The best tumblers. They keep your hots hot. They keep your colds cold. They keep your lukewarms lukewarm. Whatever liquid you put in this sucker, it's going to keep it at that exact temperature for an ungodly number of hours. So many hours that you'll say, my God. And God will say, this has nothing to do with me. So if you go to defythepower.com or stitchesandglitches.com, you can get that. Do not use the code MuddyTumbler for 10% off, because I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist anymore. But thankfully, what does exist is the fact that they will customize your order for free. No additional charge. Just customized order. Boom, boom, boom. Free. Yay.
I have a question, Spike.
Yes.
Do you have an example you can show them of a customized order?
Do I? Well, what an incredible question for you to ask, Matt. I'm of course, very prepared for such questions to come from my host, the host of the show, Muddy Waters of Freedom, which starring me, Spike Cohen and Matt Wright, who do the show. Been doing this show for many years now. And of course, I would never, ever be so caught off guard as to not have a good answer to that question. Hold on a second. Caught off guard, not have a good answer to that question. Of course, I have a great example. It's right here in my hand.
Wow.
As it always was.
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
Yes. Muddy Waters Media. It's got the Muddy Waters logo, and it has the birdie.
It does. It's got the birdie.
And it's the, hold on. The problem is the green screen is making it look weird. But this is not like that.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's like, it's not even green, but it's shining green on it, because it's very like so this thing is epoxy coated. So for example, if you were to get a signature from Matt Wright and Spike Cohen, yeah, see what's happening there? If you were to get a signature from that, it is epoxied. You could wash this sucker 10 bazillion times exactly. They've tested it by washing it 10 bazillion times, and this will not wear off. Neither will that. But yes, if you put it on my show, then and the lighting here, it will shine through to my max headroom background, which is kind of cool.
That's true.
But But you can. Are we doing this auction right now?
No, I figured we would just announce it today.
Yes.
Figured we would announce it today, show it off, let people know about it, and then we can do it. So we have two options here. We can do it next week for like an early St. Patrick's Day kind of thing, or we can do it the week after in celebration of my birth and your marriage.
You're not going to believe which one we pick. Sometime next week, we're going to auction this pony off. Look at it. Oh, man. Muddy Waters Media. It's got this right here. Oh, and it's got a special It's got a special message. Usually we say this at the end, but where we're going, we
don't need roads.
Don't need roads. It's got it at the bottom. Special message on every single order from Defy the Power. And I believe Stitches and Glitches does that. I know Defy the Power does. But you can get. I think so.
I think
so
they
if you go
will,
to their website,
because they can do customizations for free.
Oh, of course. What was I thinking? Of course they do. Because if you ask them to, that's a customization. And they'll do it for free. DefyThePower.com, StitchesandGlitches.com. Matt?
Yeah. So looking forward. I've gotten messages recently from people asking me when we're going to be doing our next auction, and I think there's going to be some competition for this one. What's funny is one of the people who messaged me, they saw what it looked like before I did, because I just sent them the video. I sent them the video and I hadn't even looked at it yet.
I think there's going to be some competition.
There is going to be some competition. It's going to be good.
We sold one of these suckers at the Florida Libertarian Convention. It was only signed by me. It did not even have Matt Wright, founder, one of the original OG founders of Muddied Waters Media, which you are watching right now. It didn't even have his signature on it, and we sold it for $500. So I think with Matt's signature, we can sell it for $1,000.
I have a feeling somebody that has messaged me will be very upset to hear that.
That's likely. But again, we'll see. I'm shooting for 1,000. You know what they say? You shoot for 1,000, and then that means you might not get it. There's a better saying. That was
like when I was waiting tables, I was always like, I'm gonna make $200. A gnat just flew in my eye. That was awful. I was always like, I'm gonna make $200 tonight, and then like I always would make $220 or $230. If I was like, I'm gonna make $100 tonight, I'd make $130. Like it was
exactly.
It was the weirdest thing. I have come up with my new favorite interview question for anybody who's thinking about working for Muddied Waters for free. And that question. Because we can't pay you.
We can't.
Not yet. One day. But yeah, that question is, what is the most important job in a restaurant?
Customer.
That's not a job in a restaurant.
It costs. Oh, no, yeah, you're right.
Morgan Dow, you could be hired. Kyle Wortley, you could be hired.
What are they saying? Hold on. I don't know.
Dishwasher.
Oh, that's a good one. Oddly enough, that was my last job at a restaurant. That was the last time I worked for someone else.
That is the most important job at a restaurant, dishwasher. Because without them, nothing else works. You can get people to do everything else, literally. That job, most important job, because nobody wants to do it.
You have no dishes. And speaking of dishes, I've got quite a dish for you, courtesy of the oh no. I had such a great segue and then I fucked it up just now. Courtesy of the Mudwater Mushroom Coffee Replacement Cacao Rapid Fire segment, brought to you by Mudwater. I know what you're thinking, folks. If you woke up today and you said, Spike, Matt, I don't want to have coffee anymore. Oh boy, what a day I've had. Why, I was just flying home yesterday and last night, and I was at my seat, and all of a sudden I look up, and the most beautiful beautiful woman I've ever seen is coming right towards me, walking right down the aisle. And so beautiful, I had to look away for a few moments so that I wouldn't blush or blurt something out. And then after a few moments, I turn around and there she is, sitting down next to me. The most beautiful woman that I've ever seen. More beautiful than even Katie Siklowski. Remember her? We don't, but I'm sure she was great. And
Fantastic.
she was fantastic, Katie Siklowski.
Fantastic.
We will never, ever forget. Gone too soon, Katie Siklowski. Cocaine is a terrible, terrible drug. Anyway, I say to this woman, I said, "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I was just taken away by your beauty, and I find myself speechless." And she said, "Oh, that's fine. That's so nice of you. Are you flying for business or pleasure?" And I said, actually, I'm just flying home. What about you, business or pleasure? And she said, "Oh, business. I'm speaking at the Nymphomaniacs International Convention. I'm one of their main speakers." Oh my goodness, I thought. Not only is this woman beautiful, but she's a nymphomaniac, which I later discovered meant that she was addicted to sex. And I was just so excited about that. I didn't even know what to think next. And so I tried to keep my composure, and I said, a nymphomaniac. I know what that means without looking it up. Tell me, what are you going to be speaking about there? And she said, it's kind of embarrassing, but a lot of people don't know a lot about nymphomania. Some of them have to look it up afterwards. And I said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. I can't imagine anyone that would have to do that. Those fools." And she said, "Yes. In fact, I'm going to be speaking about some things that I found out on my travels in my journey of nymphomania myself, the sexpert that I am." And I was pretty sure I knew what that was, which was a good thing. And she said, I found out that there are actually some I've been with men from around the world, and there's some common misperceptions that I'm going to clear up. For one example, a lot of people think that the most well-endowed men are African Americans, and it turns out actually no. That distinction belongs to the Native American man. And in fact, a lot of people think that the best lovers are French people, and in fact, that's not true. It's actually the Jews that are the best lovers. And then there is, of course, the belief. There's many different beliefs as to who has the most stamina, but I have myself found that it is the American Southern redneck who has that distinction of having the most stamina. Oh, by the way, sir, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. And I said, Tonto Bernstein Schmidt, but you can call me Bubba. Anyway, instead of having coffee, I would like instead to have a coffee alternative, something made from, I don't know, masala chai, cacao, perhaps some mushrooms, a little turmeric, maybe some sea salt and cinnamon. Those things should taste lovely together, I'm sure. Right? Well, sure, you can buy that. That's correct. By going to muddywatersofreedom.com/mud, you can get mud water today. It has all of those ingredients in it, and you're definitely going to want to add honey. Now, it has 1/7 of the cup of caffeine as a regular cup of coffee. Just enough caffeine to have you like this, but not so much caffeine that has you like this. I'm crashing, and I'm very, very bad problems with my blood pressure and cholesterol. So if you go to muddywatersofreedom.com/mud, you can get your starter kit, or pack, whichever you prefer, of mud water today. Matt?
I can confirm Jewish people make the best lovers.
I think this was specifically men, but sure.
It wasn't stated.
Once you go Jew, you won't know what to do. You will know what to do.
It's accurate.
I mean, yeah, no, you will know.
That's
what to
accurate. You
Okay.
won't know what to do because guilt.
You won't have any. There's nothing you can do without feeling terrible.
So appearing on the Daily Show this past week, the Daily Show was We're literally having a conversation in the notes. Appearing on The Daily Show, which hasn't been good since Jon Stewart left and still wasn't as good as when the, oh my God, I just forgot that guy's name. The original host.
Oh, wow.
What was his name?
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. That is going to bug me.
Craig Kilborn.
Yeah, Craig Kilborn. Yeah, Craig Kilborn was the best. Jon Stewart was good, and now it's garbage. But appearing on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, the maskless wonder, Stacey Abrams, said this.
The war that Putin is waging against Ukraine, President Zelensky said, and I'm going to paraphrase him probably poorly, he said, this isn't a war on Ukraine. This is a war on democracy in Ukraine. When we allow democracy to be overtaken by those who want to choose who can be heard, then that is wrong.
What?
Yeah. She just subtly compared her loss to Brian Kemp in 2018 to Putin invading Ukraine.
Well, those were both things I didn't predict. So.
No, we predicted the Brian Kemp one.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We called that early.
Wow, they share nothing in common.
They share nothing in common. Both are things I predicted. I'm still batting 1,000.
They share that.
So Brian Kemp's campaign press secretary, Tate Mitchell, responded with, "This is a disgusting comparison. President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people are fighting for their freedom against a callous invasion that has killed innocent civilians. Stacey Abrams is a political opportunist who has lined her pockets on lies about common sense election integrity measures like voter ID. The two are not the same." He's right.
He's right.
He's right.
He's just right.
The two are not the same. 100. What this was. This is obviously Ukraine, Russia. That's the topic du jour. That is the thing that everybody's going to go with. That is what everybody's going to compare everything to. This reminded me of the moment when the jobs report came out and Donald Trump was like, "I think that George Floyd
oh yeah
is looking down on us from heaven, just ecstatic about the jobs report." And I was like, well,
I don't know that he is.
I don't know.
I think he isn't.
That's the thing.
I think he's not.
I don't think it's the same thing.
I don't think he is.
I don't think so. But that's how I felt about this. This is what they do. They're like, okay, what does everybody know about right now? What is the topic everybody knows about right now?
Yes, Russia.
If Russia Ukraine hadn't happened, she would be like, this is like, she would have been. Hang on, I got the quote here. Let me see how I can. My focus should never be on who you cast your ballot for. Voting itself, the process is nonpartisan. We are a stronger nation when we allow people to participate. And if we ever doubted that, COVID is running rampant through America,
but not American democracy.
American democracy, just like voter ID is ruining American democracy. That would have been her quote. Everybody's looking at me not wearing a mask, and they're racist. Like, voter ID is racist. Just like anybody pointing out that I didn't wear a mask in front of all of these school children.
Well, and that is comparable, because I would imagine voter ID has a roughly 0.1% chance of changing an election result.
Yes.
That was good.
Yeah. So Stacey Abrams, who is fighting so hard for the governorship up there, over there, depending on where you are.
And over.
Yeah.
There.
In Georgia. They she's not showing me that she's going to be doing well in the next election.
No, she is if you had to rank her from A to Z, she'd probably get a Z. And speaking of Z, the letter Z has been popping up recently. Matt?
Yes, the letter Z has become a symbol of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. And after it has been seen on Russian tanks and military vehicles coming into Ukraine. I went too far. So before we get into this story, why does Russia have a Z on their equipment?
I don't know.
Because Z is a Latin symbol.
No.
And that's used in Western countries, and Russia uses Cyrillic script.
Yes.
So I may be ignorant to some things, and I'm willing to admit it when I am. Right, it's not their alphabet, exactly. So if anybody in the comments knows why they would have a Z, like why they would be using Latin letters as opposed to Cyrillic, I would be happy to find out, honestly. It's more curiosity on my part than anything else.
Yeah, morbid curiosity.
Morbid curiosity. But yeah, the letter Z merchandise has been sold by Russia Today and the Kremlin-funded TV channel. And while a Russian gymnast, Ivan Kuliak, is being investigated after he used white injury tape to create the Z on his leotard. And then came this.
Oh.
Now, so here's a group of people in the form of a Z. You can see the people here in a form of a Z. Now, this Z was made up of children. So obviously they didn't know, they didn't have any choice in this event. They were told to stand in this line. But
yes,
not only was it a group of children, this is a group of children in hospice.
Oh, God.
This is a bunch of dying children used for Russian propaganda.
Dying children.
Dying children.
So to show support for the war, they're using dying children.
Mm-hmm.
There were no other children available
for this photo op.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So to be fair, it is children and their parents, and their mothers. So divide it by half.
Okay, fair. But also, there's 30 something, about 70, 60 something people in this thing. I feel like maybe they could have found not dying children.
I agree. I think that they could have found. I almost said,
healthy children that aren't
healthy
dying.
Children.
I'm gonna Google something. How many children in Russia? There are approximately 1.44 million children born in. Oh, that was how many born. Here we go. Let's see. Let's look at how many there are. Yes, there are. That can't be true. Oh, yeah, there are 4 and 12. There are like well over 12 million. There's like 16 million children. There's a lot of children in Russia. It's a lot. Right. Oh, no, I'm looking at that wrong. No, because that's male and then female. Yeah, there's like 30 million, somewhere between 30 and 40 million children in Russia. And so instead,
they use roughly 40
dead kids.
We'll say there's
dying kids.
Dying children. Dying children.
I think if someone's dying and you want to try to make their death as comforting as possible, you bring them out into the snow and have them trudge along to form a Z. And so we still don't know what the Z means, right?
So no, we don't know what the Z means. Somebody, Mr. Just Because says some interpret Z as Zapobody, which is, I guess, Russian for victory. Somebody else said Tom Stewart said they had 3 army groups coming in. One was labeled V coming out of the east. So they may have just been using different letters. I don't know. I couldn't find it yesterday when I was, I think it's possible the Z is being used by the media to distinguish the Russian artillery, and then they can make any tank a Russian tank. That's all. I mean, yeah. The Z is the first letter of for victory. Okay. Z is the first letter of for victory. All right. I'm going to go with that.
Do they use a Z in their language? I didn't think they used a Z.
I don't think they do.
Well, that is interesting. So,
well, I mean, Zelensky.
That's Ukrainian.
I mean, they use the same alphabet.
Oh yeah, that's good. So and nothing says victory, of course, like dying children. So speaking of dying children, companies like Netflix, Disney, Adidas. Oh, really? Oh, Adidas, Apple.
I really
Exxon.
thought that was a joke.
Yeah.
I thought that was a joke, but Adidas did pull.
They did, yeah. Apple, Exxon, and IKEA. So if you wanted to assemble your own expensive furniture, you better not if you're Russian, because all of those companies have halted service to Russia. Everyone is jumping on the bandwagon. That's included Apple with Apple Pay, Google with Google Pay, Visa and Mastercard. All of them have cut off the ability for Russians to purchase things from outside of Russia, which is that's going to really help economically.
So, yeah, everybody's out there saying, before we get into, because I don't think I cover this, before we get into this, everybody's like, yeah, Visa and MasterCard cut them off. And yeah, that is terrible for the people of Russia, who have absolutely nothing to do with these decisions being made.
Exactly.
But they still can use, if their Visa or MasterCard was issued in country, they can still use it for like for their metro, or to buy groceries, they can still use it in their country.
They just can't use it externally. Yeah.
They just can't use it externally. So they wouldn't be able to order things off Amazon unless it was coming, or Russian Amazon. I don't know what that is. Unless it's coming from, of course. How did I not know that? Russia's on. So yes, it's terrible for the people who have absolutely nothing to do with this fight, who can't, get their Coke anymore. Coca-Cola, can't buy drugs with credit cards. But
no.
Who can't do that. So it's terrible for those people. But with Visa and MasterCard making this decision, this has pressed Russian banks to start using a new MIR card system in partnership with China's UnionPay. So they're going to be, they are going to start giving out cards from China's UnionPay, backed by the Chinese dollar.
Yeah. And also, they have reverted to their own currency, the yuan renminbi. Yuan renminbi. That's what they call it for some reason. They reverted to their own currency when trading with Russia, which currently their trade is about it was almost $150 billion last year. It'll be way more than that this year. But when they, in order to limit the use of the dollar, they're reverting to their own currency when trading with Russia, which honestly, I'm surprised they hadn't already done that. That's weird that they hadn't. But I think so.
I think that probably, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that probably it was just easier to use the dollar when doing a lot of the stuff, because they were on the Visa and they had the MasterCard and they had all that. So it was just easier. But now it's just a seamless transition into the renminbi. It's a seamless transition into that. So they can just go, okay, let's just go into this now. We don't even have to worry about the dollar anymore.
Yep. So the move to end service in Russia, which has been universally praised by people in Western leadership because they think sanctions work, has only moved to strengthen the financial relationship between Russia and China. Other sanctions are coming through. We're going to get to that later in the next segment. They're only going to continue to strengthen that bond. What they're also going to do is lead to unnecessary suffering of innocent Russians. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah. But by doing that, you see, when you sanction people, then they realize that this is tied to the war. And then they decide that they don't support their leadership anymore because of the hardship that's being created by the sanctions. And then so by starving them, we make them not like their leadership. Well, no, that's not what happens. What actually happens is what happened in Iran and Iraq and every other country that we've ever sanctioned, is that their leadership lets them know that it's because of sanctions from foreign countries that are deciding to cut them off from trade. And as we know, trade being cut off causes unnecessary suffering. And so they actually correctly say what it's caused by, and then don't give any context as to what led to those sanctions in the first place, because they're getting state-run propaganda. So all they hear is that they're being sanctioned because we hate them. That's what they think. And then they just hate us more, and it draws them even closer to their leadership as they starve to death. Even if they did make that connection and say, oh, we're against this now, they live in a dictatorship. They can't effectively remove that leadership.
No.
I mean, we don't even live in a dictatorship, and we can't effectively remove our military-industrial complex leadership. We can replace this guy with this guy, but for the most part, they're on the same team when it comes to endless war and endless military incursions and interventions overseas. So what makes us think Russians are going to be able to do that? All this does is cause suffering, and like Matt said, it causes the world's dictatorships and oligarchies and authoritarian governments to just get closer relationships and cut us out of it.
And
yay!
They've come up with like a cutesy little. The Western media has come up with a cutesy little nickname for what is happening here, and it's either Dragon Bear game or Bear Dragon game. And they're saying that this is the oncoming Bear Dragon game. I don't remember which order it's in. And they're doing that because they're trying to give off the impression of, the bear and the dragon coming together to, try to defeat the West, which, yeah, that's kind of what is going to happen, is they're going to come together to try to defeat the West. And we'll get into this a little bit more later, but if we keep trying to cut them off financially from the global system, they'll continue growing bonds with each other and with other countries in their area, and they will attempt to make it where the US dollar is no longer the premier currency.
Which, by the way, you thought things were expensive now? Let the Federal Reserve note, which is that dollar, lose its world reserve currency status, and watch all the wars they'll have to do to make sure that happens. That stays in place. Tim Weissong says, remember when that Cuban embargo ended communism there? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
We'll get into some other sanctions later that didn't work also.
Yes. So that now I'll tell you what does work. Yep. I'll tell you what does work. And that is the personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor call-in moment, brought to you by personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. If you folks are watching this and thinking, I am sick and tired of this kind of nonsense, all the bad news that you and Matt keep telling me that all the times I've voted Republican or Democrat, that it's made things worse and it hasn't helped things. Why, I'm going to sue you. Well, good luck, pal, because if you're in Florida, we're going to sue you back with personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, host of the personal injury attorney, or sponsor of the personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor call-in moment. Chris Reynolds If you want to sue someone else but us, and you're in Florida and you've been personally injured, then you contact Chris Reynolds by going to chrisreynoldslaw.com. Chris Reynolds will get you dumb, stupid stacks of big, dumb money. So much money. You'll just be big, rich. Just walk around. You can lay down in the money. You can Scrooge McDuck your way through the money. You can do all that stuff. chrisreynoldslaw.com. Matt?
Now, before we get into the personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor calling moment, I believe we have 7. Last I checked, it was 7.
Yes.
6 of those that I have not listened to.
Yes.
You can guess which 6 I haven't listened to. From what I understand, they are an in-depth explanation of a colonoscopy.
Well, let's get to it.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, it's up to you on if you want to do it.
Why not? So first we'll do an actual question that came from Midwest Guy.
Hey there, Matt and Spike. This is Midwest Guy calling in on the Chris Reynolds attorney at law anchor column moment TM. Just calling in to see if you guys have caught wind of this Buckhead situation over in Atlanta, Georgia. I guess these guys are trying to secede from Atlanta. Would love to hear your thoughts on it if you heard about it.
So I have heard of it. I have heard of it. I know that this call was from a couple of weeks ago, I think. Because we had the State of the Union last week, so we didn't do this, and I think it was the week before that. Oh, and then we didn't have a show the week before that, so this may have been from 3 weeks ago. So the Buckhead situation, I know that it failed, but the leader of the Buckhead movement, who is attempting to secede from Atlanta, said that they were planning for that, they were expecting that, and they know that movements like these sometimes can take up to a decade. So that's where they are.
Yeah, so a little bit of, I hadn't heard of this, but it kind of makes sense. Buckhead is a very rich part of Atlanta, which I would imagine is sick of paying some of the taxes of Atlanta in exchange for services that their residents largely don't get. So that's probably why they want to do it. And just as a general rule, we support, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Matt because he owns himself and his body and his thoughts, but in general, and I believe Matt, support in general people wanting to secede from governance that they don't wish to be under, all the way up and into the individual. I just felt the irony of saying Matt and I both believe that any individual can choose to refuse to associate with something, except for Matt, because he believes the same as me. Because he's
going to believe what I believe.
Because he believes what I believe. So yes. So if they want to secede, fine, and if everyone else wants to secede, that's fine as well. The only beef you're going to have is with government. So that was the only real question we have. Now we have what I'm told is, yes, we're going to start with that. Here we go. Here's the first one.
Well, hello there, Guy on left and Spike. This is Matt Hicks calling in on the personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, anchor calling moment with your colonoscopy update. TM. So I had to start getting colonoscopies early because I got a long family history of colon cancer, and it's highly advisable that you all take advantage of this screening, which is covered by insurance. It's not the worst experience in the world. Certainly not the worst experience I've had in the last 12 months. But here's your play-by-play. And this is going to be in several segments because it's quite the story. #LaserLegend. So for the first couple of days leading up to the actual procedure, it's not that bad. You go on a low-fiber diet, and you got to eat like soft food and all this stuff. It's not that painful or unpleasant. But what I can tell you from personal experience is that you absolutely must follow the doctor's instructions with that one. You'll thank me for it later when you're having some violent butt trauma. it didn't really get bad and unpleasant until the day before the procedure. When you wake up, you're on an all liquid diet. And let me just tell you that chicken broth out of a coffee cup tastes awful. Jello is horrible. That's what you can eat, basically. Stuff like that. It's totally unpleasant. Hashtag loser legend. So the night before the procedure is where things get really dicey. That's when you have to drink this stuff that they just call prep, right? Its brand name is like Go Lightly or something like that. I can assure you that it is anything other than going lightly. First of all, you have to mix this stuff with water, and it's like a gallon, right? And it tastes somewhere in the neighborhood of like somebody mixed ocean water with baby oil, if that makes sense, and added in a little bit of burnt plastic for good measure. It's a horrifying, disgusting taste. But you got to gut through it and drink a bunch of this stuff, which I did. And I gagged down as much as I could. And then the fun starts. Hashtag loser legend.
I don't regret doing this.
I already know what's coming next.
About somewhere around halfway through drinking this gallon of stuff, you'll start to feel these weird rumblings in your gut. At that point, my advice to you is there is no longer a fart, sneeze, or cough that you can trust. You'll regret it if you do. Things are going to start flying out of your butt. And the only way that I can describe it is if you have a spray nozzle on a garden hose and you just grab it and squeeze the spray nozzle in intermittent, 15-second bursts with, 10 seconds in between. And this is going to go on for several hours. And it's going to continue until your stool is clear, yellow, and with a little bit of sediment. That's the best description I can give you for it. Hashtag loser legend.
I don't know. I didn't need that part.
I knew that was
And
coming.
this prep stuff that you got to drink, they say that it works through osmotic pressure, whatever that means. I'm not a scientist. I don't care. What I can tell you is that it's got a ton of salt, and it gave me a screaming headache. So I slept like garbage all night last night after I finally finished blowing out, God only knows, like 10-year-old remnants of food that were still in my intestines and colon. It was disgusting and horrifying. But still, next morning, no liquids at all, 3 hours prior to your appointment time. No food, no liquids, no nothing. And that stuff sucked because, you guys have met me. You've seen me. I like my food, right? I really like my food. So that part was pretty miserable. Hashtag loser legend.
Okay, one more, everyone. These, oddly enough, these segments are kind of like what he went through with his butt. Just like one, you just have to take it
Just
about
one
a minute
after
at
the
a time.
just one after the other, and they're
One after the
mildly
other.
painful.
Yep, mildly painful, and you can't stop it because only I can. Me being, I guess, God in this scenario.
So I get to the hospital this morning for the procedure, and they get me changed, get me all rigged up to an IV, wheel me back into the procedure room, and it's been a couple of minutes, so I'm a little bit bored. They tell me to roll over on my side, and I'm sitting there bored, and some lady says she's going to give me something to relax, and I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm pretty relaxed. And the last thing is I was thinking about how the Washington Commanders made a trade offer to the Seahawks to try and get Russell Wilson for a couple of first-round draft picks. And then I woke up, like pain, no nothing. It's whatever. It wasn't all that unpleasant. The worst part about it is having to chug a gallon of magic butt juice that's going to make you shit like a lawn sprinkler, an angry lawn sprinkler, for a couple of hours. So, plan accordingly. Wear clean underwear, but not new ones. And that's the story. Hashtag laser legend.
Hey, thanks, Matt. That was the personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, Anchor Colin moment. And if you live in Florida and you feel personally injured by that segment,
By that story,
then go to chrisreynoldslaw.com and sue Matt Hicks. But beware, because Matt Hicks is also studying to become an attorney. So you better do it quickly, because soon he'll sue you back. He'll probably sue you back now anyway. That was fun. So speaking of...
so if you feel that you might be at high risk for colon cancer or prostate
Yes.
cancer, get a colonoscopy, because now you know what to expect.
Yeah, it sounds great. So speaking of dark, brownish liquid
Magic
surging
butt juice.
forth from tight holes, oil. Matt?
So I'm still so if you've been in your car at all over the
Ever.
last week,
Yeah.
or online anywhere, or riding a bike.
They're
There's
just
probably
outside.
one reason
yeah.
you're yeah, there's probably only one reason you're riding a bike right now. You
Yeah.
probably already know that gas prices have they've gone up a smidge.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. They've gone up.
Mhm.
Just a little bit. Yeah, Ken Evil, superhuman Ken Evil is driving right now. But yeah, gas prices have gone up a little bit. Now, you have probably seen on the media, not this media, but other media, that this is due to Ukraine and Russia, and that's why gas is what is so expensive right now. No, that's not true. The oil is bought on futures, and I expect actually all of our audience to already know this, but for any new people who are here, thank you for listening to your friends and finally tuning in. Oil is bought on futures, and right now, according to reports, they are betting that by the end of March, and I'm going to preface this with, I did these notes yesterday, and I think it's changed, but they are betting that by the end of March, barrels of oil are going to be going for a whopping $238 a barrel.
I could see that.
Yeah, now they're saying 300, I think.
Yeah.
Now, if you compare that to the $125 that it was earlier today when I last checked,
Yeah.
that's quite the jump in the next few weeks. Now, if you compare it to, let's say, March 8th of last year, it was $65.
Yep.
$65 a barrel last year.
But thankfully, we have politicians and celebrities who are using this as an opportunity to signal. Usually they signal virtue. What they're signaling right now is just how rich and out of touch they are. For example, Sulu said this: Americans, we can endure higher prices for food and gas if it means putting the screws to Putin. Consider it a patriotic donation in the fight for freedom over tyranny. The freedom to spend all your money on something that should be much, 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 much cheaper.
And then he said,
Stephen,
oh my. Oh
Stephen
my.
Stephen Colbert said, he told a joke. He said, I don't care if gas is $4 a barrel, if that's what, or $4 a gallon, that's what it takes to beat Putin. I don't care if it's $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla.
Now, what Sulu and Stephen Colbert apparently don't realize
Yes.
is that oil is used for more things than just gas.
Yeah.
It's used for plastics and many other things that I don't have off the top of my head. But the biggest thing is, how do you think your food gets to where it is?
Yeah.
How do you think your goods get here from, I don't know, China?
Yep.
On ships. using diesel. What do you think is going to happen as the price of gas continues to rise to your goods and your foods that you are purchasing at the store? Like, we can even forget about the wheat issue that's going on with the war going on in the world's breadbasket, as they have started calling it recently. We can forget about that. Think about how much it's now costing truckers to drive from wherever they pick up the food to your grocery stores to drop it off.
Yep.
What's going to happen to the cost of everything? Cost of everything.
Yep. Like every single thing, but that's okay. Breaking news, by the way. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says that if your gas prices have gone too high that you can no longer afford your basic transportation needs, if you buy an electric car, then you will actually save money after spending the $100,000 for an electric car. And also that they're going to be building charging stations in a few years, and that'll help too. And Kamala Harris said, Russia is a big country right next to the Ukraine, which is a
smaller country.
And then Russia invaded Ukraine. Basically, that's bad. I wonder why they wouldn't let me debate her.
So, as we discussed earlier in the show, before the colonoscopy minute segment, we'll call that a segment because that was much longer than a minute.
Brought to you by personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law.
When you think colonoscopy, think Chris Reynolds and that. As companies have been blocking Russia's access to things like, purchasing power, money, access to things like, money in the fight for freedom over tyranny, they have strengthened the peaceful and not at all tyrannical government of China. The very peaceful and not at all tyrannical government of China.
Yeah.
So according to a Dear Colleague letter from Nancy Pelosi, she wrote, the House is currently exploring strong legislation that will further isolate Russia from the global economy. Our bill would ban the import of Russian oil and energy products into the United States, repeal normal trade relations with Russia and Belarus, and take the first steps to deny Russia access to the World Trade Organization. Now, since I did these notes yesterday, and right now everything is changing so quickly, President Sundowning came out today and he said that we are going to be banning importation of Russian oil.
So if you think that the price of, by the way, what you're seeing right now, the price of gas is reflecting what the price of a barrel of oil was a couple weeks ago.
Now,
you don't know what the price is about to be.
We all know, because we all watch this show, how many barrels of oil the U.S. goes through in a day.
Yes.
Right. It's roughly 25 to 30 million barrels a day.
Million barrels a day. Yeah.
Yep. 25 to 30 million barrels a day. Yep. How many barrels a day do you think we bought from Russia last year?
Per day?
Per day.
I'm not sure. I don't think we get much. It's mostly Europe that gets it.
Yep. We get roughly, it's a little bit less than 696,000 barrels a day.
Yeah. So about 3%.
Right. And they say that we get 8% of our oil from Russia, but I can do math in my head.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. And we go through 25 to 30 million barrels a day, and we get 696,000 barrels a day from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no mathematician, but I know that's not 8%.
No, it's less than 4.
Yeah, yeah, it's less than 4. Um, so the 696,000 barrels a day that we are no longer going to be taking from Russia, China will be more than happy to pick that up.
Yeah.
More than happy to pick that up. So Russia's not going to lose anything on us making this decision.
But you know who does lose is the U.S. consumer, because our oil prices are largely driven by speculators that are trading futures on the Chicago Board of Trade commodities market. Every single one of these political maneuvers is a signal to buy more gas futures and oil futures. We're cutting off trade. We're not opening the leases. We're not allowing more leases. When Joe Biden, one of the first things he did when he came into office was to pass his executive order to stop any new federal land leases. There has been the politicians that are in charge are saying, "Oh, just buy electrical vehicles." Every signal they're making right now is oil futures need to go up, buy more oil futures, buy more oil futures. And that's what's happening. This is largely political and speculatory, and it's not even a supply issue right now, at least not in the U.S. And it's just bad politics that isn't doing anything to hurt Russia.
No, not even a little bit. And you'll see, like, if anybody out there has been watching Jen Psaki talking with anybody from Fox News, you will hear her say, why don't you ask the oil companies about the 9,000 unused leases that are out there on public lands? Why aren't they using those? Why don't you turn this around and ask them? She won't answer the question on why they won't open more, but she's going to say, why don't you go to the oil companies and ask them why they aren't using the 9,000 leases?
Yes.
So I talked with somebody that worked in oil, and he said that he can't speak to what the 9,000 leases are because he no longer works in oil, but the odds are they are revitalization leases, which means that they've been tapped and they can't revitalize them. Like, they tried to revitalize them, but they kept the leases open just in case that, just to be able to have 9,000 that nobody can use. Odds are those 9,000 have been tapped and they can't be used anyway. And then they're going to point at the oil companies and say, the oil companies are the ones doing this. It's not us. We have 9,000 that they aren't using.
Yeah. And anyone who thinks that oil companies aren't pushing out as much oil as they can right now with prices as high as they are, I don't think you understand how companies work.
Because right now, roughly, and it depends on which study you read, because I've read multiple in the last couple of days, but depending on which study you read, the oil company, the people who are doing the drilling and the people who are doing the distributing will make about $1 per gallon, about $1 a gallon. The 7-Eleven or the Shell station or whoever that you go to fill up your tank, they get about 5 cents a gallon-ish, 5 cents, 4 cents. The U.S. government, the federal government, gets 48 cents a gallon. 48 cents a gallon. And depending on what state you are in, that is an extra 8 cents in Alaska, to an extra 58 cents in 58 cents is in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania. California, not the highest. I was shocked. My money was on California or New York. Pennsylvania is the highest.
Pennsylvania.
But averaged out, it's about 28 cents a gallon across the entire nation. So when they're saying, why is the oil company taking so much money? The government's taking, in some places,
76 cents on average.
On average, 76 cents. 76 cents for
places, doing
literally nothing.
And in some places as high as $1.06 per gallon in Pennsylvania for doing absolutely nothing and actually passing, not just doing nothing, actually causing harm by passing regulations that drive up the cost of oil, which, by the way, not also including, because they tell us, oh, well, this is for climate change. It's very, very dangerous for climate change when we produce oil in this country. It's not dangerous when it's produced in foreign dictatorships. That's perfectly fine. But also, if they were concerned about climate change and the price of energy, they would be removing the regulations that make it prohibitively expensive to build new nuclear plants. The safest, most grid stable, most reliable, most cheap, affordable, and the most carbon neutral form of energy that is in existence. We could be making them very quickly. We could be making smaller micro stations. We could be making thorium salt reactors within a year or so. We could be vastly ramping up our production of energy, which would greatly reduce the need for fossil fuels for the powering of homes and businesses, the actual energy grid. All those fossil fuels could be focused on transportation, on vehicles, trains, things like that. Although increasing number of trains are on the electrical grid, but and the things that rely on fossil fuels, boats, shipping, airplanes, things like that. Until we're able to make more electric versions of those types of things, especially cars. That could be happening right now. And there would be, even though it would take a couple years to see that, it would be signaling, again, to that speculatory market that the government is serious about reducing the price of energy long term. And that would have a suppressive effect on people wanting to speculate and bet their money that the price is going to keep going up. That, of course, is not going to happen, because they want you to suffer so they can grandstand on your suffering, so they can sell you the solution. And that's what this is all about. Just like the State of the Union address. Tell you about all the problems that they've created and talk about how much you're suffering from it, and then promise you that after they've broken your legs, stolen your wallet, that they're going to use some of it to buy you some crutches. You're welcome, America.
Now, Joe Biden, thinking that all of America is not as smart as our audience, said in his State of the Union that the U.S. and people overseas and foreign governments have agreed to release 60 million barrels of oil from their reserves, with the U.S. releasing 30 million barrels themselves.
One day.
60 million barrels.
2 days.
Is the U.S. and China one day.
Yep.
One day.
Yep. So for the entire Western world, less than 2 days, somewhere between 1 and 2 days. That'll fix it. Oh, also, you know what the purpose of the strategic reserve is? To have enough oil for the military. So what they're also letting Russia and China know is that if the Western governments actually did decide to mobilize their militaries, which they 100% are not going to, that they couldn't.
Now, at this point, it's where the U.S. will continue its patriotic donation in the fight for freedom over tyranny. By ending sanctions on Venezuela, so we can get their oil shipped to the U.S. Anthony Winkin, Blinken, and Nod said that they had promising negotiations with Venezuela recently about lifting the sanctions. The peaceful, non-tyrannical, freedom-loving government of socialist Venezuela.
One of our strongest allies.
One of our strongest allies. And lest we not forget the negotiations currently going on with Iran, the peaceful, non-tyrannical, freedom-loving government of Iran that we are currently negotiating with to give them, to allow them to have nuclear power. And I'm not saying that we should be in charge of their nuclear at all.
Yep, of course.
Not saying that, but should we be trading oil for their ability to make nukes there? I don't think we should be trading with them. I don't think we should be trading with the Saudis either, because that just helps fund genocide in Yemen. But all of the countries that we are talking. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was cutting off what you were about to say. Go ahead.
And all of the countries that we are negotiating with about lifting sanctions and trading for oil happen to be really, really good friends with, Russia.
Genius.
They will still trade with Russia. Venezuela and Iran, they're going to still trade with Russia. They're still going to do business with Russia. They're going to still do business with China. What is this accomplishing? What is this doing to hurt Russia? Everything,
smart power.
Every sanction that we have put into place, every single one of them, China has either picked up the slack and said, okay, don't worry, we got you. We will cover this. We will make this work. Or we're trading with their allies who will continue to do business using the money that we are giving them.
Smart power. This is smart.
And Biden right now, he's getting praise for his foreign policy. And they're like, oh, look at how great Biden's doing on the world stage and blah, blah, blah. And I am aghast at that. Aghast. Just purely aghast. And you know I'm aghast because I actually use the phrase aghast without thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I want to say something. That is what the military industrial complex corporate media spokespeople are saying. But let's be really clear here. So after a State of the Union speech, almost always a president's approval ratings go to the highest they're going to be all year, because they just got unadulterated propaganda from that government with no real and especially when it's a Democrat, it usually gets, it comes with unflinchingly positive coverage afterwards, except from Fox News. And his number, according to one poll, which seems to be an outlier, is as high as 47%.
I've never heard of that poll before this week.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of polls.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so by the way, so it's Marist, which sounds like Marxist, but it's also an NPR PBS NewsHour poll. So according to the government investigated the government and found that the government has a 47% approval rating. Now, incidentally, this came in before the cost of gas went up $1 in like 4 days. Wonder how that'll affect him. So I don't think the average American is looking right now and saying what a great job Joe Biden's doing with Russia or anything else.
I read a poll, I think from the same people. I read a poll, I'm pretty certain it was from the same people, where they said 65% of Americans said that they approve of the sanctions against Russia, even if it means
I believe that
paying. You believe that?
I believe that 65% of Americans say that, because both Republican and Democrat media are saying that. So no, I'm surprised it's not higher. But even if what? I didn't hear that part.
Even if it means paying an extra $1 or $2 at the pump.
Yeah. No, I believe they said that because they were told to.
I believed it up until they said another $1 or $2 at the pump. That was where I went, no, I call bullshit on that, because most Americans were complaining about the gas prices already when it was at $3.10.
if this was do they actually support it? No. But would they virtue signal that to someone who calls them? Yes, of course I would. I support the Ukrainian people and gas prices. I'm so rich. Gas prices don't affect me. No, I can see people doing that. That's like there was a poll a few years ago where they asked people, do you think that you're in the top 1% of income earners in the US? And like 41% said yes, or 38% or something like that said yes. And they said, obviously some of them might think they are, but they're not. So that might explain it being 4 or 5 or even 6%. 38 to 41% is people flexing to a stranger on the phone. So I think that's the dynamic here. Are people actually going to be okay with paying? Because folks, I got news for you. The kind of numbers that we're seeing in oil futures, and if oil futures get to $300 a barrel, yeah, you're looking at $6-7 a gallon if you're currently paying $4. And you're looking at $11-12 a gallon if you're currently paying $6 or $7. Like this is unprecedented numbers, and not just unprecedented, but on a completely different tier. And we're not going to stimulus spend our way out of that. In fact, stimulus spending would just make it worse. And none of the negotiations that are happening right now are going to do anything about it. The only thing they can do is simply get over themselves and start making political signals that drive down speculation prices, that get people to start shorting their bets on the price of oil. And those are things like announcing that you're going to roll back the executive order on new leases, announcing that you're going to allow the building of new refineries, announce that you're going to allow the production of offshore drilling, announcing that you're going to remove the cost prohibitive regulations on building of new nuclear plant. You're going to have to do a full court press, not on some new spending program to subsidize the cost of gas, which will drive it up even more, but on saying that we're going to do things and allow things that will drive down the cost of fuel and the cost of energy. And I'm not sure how high it has to go before they do that. Not if they're telling people the answer to this is to buy more electrical vehicles.
Yeah, if you go back to, I think it was April of 2020. I think I'm not. Don't quote me on the month. I know it was in the spring or summer of 2020. Barrels of oil were going for like $34. $34. Now we are looking at 125, possibly reaching 300 by the end of this month. The Scientific Libertarian 2.0 said it's definitely not printing 80% of our currency since 2020 that caused inflation. No. It's the war that nobody predicted 2 months ago. Right. I mean,
of course not.
2 months ago, maybe you could have done it, but 6 months ago, you definitely couldn't have. But 6 months ago, we were dealing with 7% inflation rates, 7.4%, I believe. Now we're at 10. Anybody could have seen all of this happening across, like it doesn't take a lot to see all of it happening. They aren't what's the word? You can see the punches coming. They're forecasting their punches.
Oh, they're not telegraphing their punches. Yeah.
Right. So I know that you said that we aren't going to be sending the American military over. I won't say that. I don't know. I think
the possibility is there, but only if they want the gas price to go way up, and then for us to stop worrying about a global warming and instead of worry about thermonuclear warming. I think.
Well, according to the Huffington Post, a small nuclear war could be good for climate change.
Yes, a nuclear winter would prevent global warming, wouldn't it? I will say this. I think Joe Biden's going to blink. Oh, by the way, you know who benefits from oil prices going through the roof? Any country that a large proportion of their economy is based on the exporting of fossil fuels, like Russia. Like everything they're doing helps Russia. All the sanctions they're doing are almost at this point completely offset by the fact that Russia is just pulling in and it's state-run oil. So it's just going straight into the coffers of the Russian government to basically reward them for the actions they've taken. And by the way, for those who, Trump would have been better, Trump would have marginally been better on this because he would have talked about drill, baby, drill, and that probably would have driven down speculation. But in terms of like real, actual, like the fundamentals of policy, there wouldn't have been a real difference. But I will say Donald Trump right now would be saying, we need to be drilling, we need to be drilling, we need to be drilling, we need to be doing whatever it takes to make more oil here, and just him saying that would probably help drive down speculation prices. And so just that alone, he would be better
instead of going out and saying, no, we're not going to give any more leases. No, we're not going to do that. That would take months anyway to do anything, which isn't true. Which isn't true. It wouldn't take months because futures are based on speculation. So
exactly.
You would end up having an immediate price decrease because more oil would be coming sooner.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't be transporting it from Russia, or you wouldn't be transporting it from the Middle East, or you wouldn't be transporting it from China. You'd be getting it here. So prices would automatically go down. So you wouldn't have to worry
the beauty of macroeconomic issues that are happening as a result of speculation is that you can use good politicking, good messaging to drive it down. So instead, the U.S. federal government is using shit messaging that seemingly is intended to make the damn thing go up and help Russia.
And the entire time, the only thing they're pushing is their green energy platform, saying, get an electric car. We need to switch to clean energy. We need to get off fossil fuels. I don't know about everybody that's watching this right now. I can't afford to switch to an electric car.
Not with these gas prices.
I may have been able to a couple of weeks ago, but then I had to fill up my tank a few times because I drive a Jeep Wrangler. So the entire time they're just basically telling anybody that's middle class, lower middle class, and lower class, sorry about your luck, get an electric car. Don't care that you can't afford this. Doesn't matter.
And they're telling the speculators, we aren't doing shit except saber rattle and make sure this war continues forever. We aren't negotiating. We aren't doing shit. You can drive this thing up to $1,000 a barrel. We aren't going to do a damn thing except tell poor people to buy electric cars and talk about building charging stations 5 years from now, which again does nothing even to help speculators do anything but continue to buy more futures. It is absurd. Tim Weissong says, where are all the collapsitarians? Shouldn't they be pretty excited right about now? Collapsitarianism isn't real. That's just coping. Oh, that's fine. I want it to be that way. Then we can get closer to liberty. No, it's not real. That's not a real thing. That's why you're not hearing them happy right now. They don't want it to collapse. They just say that to cope.
Collapsitarians can't afford their internet, so because they had to pay for gas.
They had to pay for gas, so you're not going to hear from them. No, that's just copertarianism. They're just coping. People that are coping with what they believe is an impossible task of trying to spread liberty, and they go, "That's fine. I want it to be this way because then it'll make it crash faster, and everyone will die. Then we could be libertarian." That's not true, and it's not real. And here you are now suffering under it. So that's not real. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. All we need, copertarians. All we need is we need some good politicking to drive down the two things. The good politicking of announcing good policy will immediately start to suppress the long bets that people are making on the price of oil futures. And it will also lead to eventually having energy independence and having less climate emissions by relying on nuclear energy and various forms of nuclear, like thorium and like the micro plants and so forth.
And another thing that we could do as a nation to help with this is possibly not throw money at every single problem that we have.
Yes.
let's stop printing money in order to just toss it at an issue to be like, let's hope this fixes it, because that is also aiding in all of the price increases that we are seeing right now. The 80% of, as Scientific Libertarian said earlier, I think, is it 80%? I thought it was higher than that. But 80% of all money ever created has been made in the last 2 years.
Yep.
That is 100% aiding in the fact that everything costs more. If we stop throwing money at every issue that we have and give us new leases, let new refineries open up, we will not have to have this issue.
And it hurts Russia. If you do it for no other reason than it hurts the Putin government that you're trying to sanction into doing your bidding, that's clearly not working. And instead, you're signaling the drive. Anyway, so the one thing that concerns me that I just thought of is what happens when the government says that this is such a crisis that you're not allowed to use your car until the price goes down?
Because it's an emergency.
Because it's an emergency? And all, I mean, is that a public health emergency? It is when they say it is. And who's going to stop them? And how many of the people right now would immediately turn around and go, I'm fine doing my patriotic duty of staying home and getting a check to beat the Putin government? Oh, you want to be able to drive to work? I guess you support racism, transphobia, and all of the other bigotry and authoritarianism that comes from the Russian government, not to mention their brutal invasion of Ukraine, whose capital I recently learned how to spell. I care very much, and you clearly don't.
I recently learned the Ukrainian way to pronounce Kyiv.
Kyiv, after saying Kiev for my entire life. But I always knew, because I care a lot about other countries. You don't. That's why you want to be able to go to work and see your family. But I care about people that I'll never meet. Not you, though. You're a piece of shit, and I hate you.
That's actually really good. That's a.
Do you know how?
That was funny.
So do you know, by the way, side note here, remember when they were talking about how outraged they were that Elon Musk was making all this money and only paying $11 billion in taxes? They just told everyone to buy a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're everybody. Like, they can't wait to be like, Elon Musk has made $3 trillion this year because everyone's buying Teslas. And I don't know why, but he's only paying $190 billion in taxes. That's not right.
It should be so much more.
It should be so much higher.
That's actually a fantastic point. And if it was 3 years ago, I can't say 2 years ago because there's no way, and because I would have been able to make this leap 2 years ago now.
No.
But if it was 3 years ago, I would have been like, there is no way that the government would ever say, well, no, this is now an emergency. We have a gas shortage, and this is a public emergency, so you can't drive your car. Now I'm like, man, that is on the table, and that is. I 100% guarantee that was something that has been brought up in a room somewhere.
Oh, yeah. No, they've definitely talked about it. And Anthony Fauci's like, we don't know if driving your car when the price of gas is $6 a gallon can cause your friend to get AIDS.
Where the hell has he been?
Maybe he's dead. Hold on, let me look it up.
What? He got COVID. Yeah, I don't like he has not been anywhere since CDC changed their mask guidelines. Nowhere.
Well, PolitiFact is letting you know that actually Dr. Anthony Fauci has regularly given interviews and appeared at news briefings. every single day. Recently, he was on something back on as recently as March 5th, which was only 3 days ago. And we're not going to even mention in this article the fact that he was on every fucking headline that was ever mentioned every single day, multiple times a day, and has taken a decided position in the back burner as other things have decided to get in the way of that. We're just going to pretend that everyone thinks Anthony Fauci has actually disappeared and isn't talking to anyone. And that is not true. It's missing context.
Mr. Cohen, you are wrong about everything you have just said.
Spike Cohen is causing people to write me and say horrible things about me. Here is something they wrote. I don't have any paper. But look at it.
Godfrey.
Look at it. Spike Cohen is
Yeah, that's Godfrey.
Justico Mitchell says, do this voice on Kennedy. Yeah, no, I want to get invited back.
Right.
I would do this one, though. Kennedy, I think what you're saying is absolutely abominable. Thank you for having me on.
You should go on as the Democrat one time and do that voice.
Kennedy, oh my gosh. You know what we'll do is we'll have me come on and like tell them ahead of time I want to come on as the Democrat and not tell them what I'm going to do. And then as soon as she has me and asks me a question, I'm going to go, Kennedy, I'm so outraged that you would say something that is so reeking of transphobia, and just go on a whole thing. And it'll be about like gas prices, and I'll be like, you clearly haven't heard about the ADOS's community struggle when it comes to the recognition of lesbianism just make stuff up while they're talking about like gas prices.
Just call everybody a racist or a transphobe.
I guess that I would care about something as trite as the price of gas going into my sport utility vehicle if I wasn't preoccupied with the suffering of the people overseas that whose names I just learned the cities that they live in, and therefore know a lot about and am very knowledgeable of. And it is these absolute idiots that don't follow the news who think that it's important that we be able to afford food. But that's not true. What's true is that all lives can't matter until everyone is paying $20 a gallon for gas.
That was like in
2016
when Gary Johnson had his "What is Aleppo" moment.
Yes.
And people were coming up to me and they were like, yeah, your candidate didn't know what Aleppo was. My response to them every time was, let me see your Google history right now. Because I know you Googled what is Aleppo.
Yeah.
Because you saw the sound, you saw the clip of him going, what is Aleppo? And didn't follow it up with anything. You're just like, oh, he looks like an idiot. What is Aleppo?
I better find out what Aleppo is. Let me tell you something, folks.
Before I start talking shit to any libertarian I know.
I consider myself fairly knowledgeable. And when you're on live television, especially when you're in studio and they start asking you something and they ask you something that you don't remember at that moment, you better have some powerful spinning abilities. Now, the one thing I will say, and I've said this before on the show, Gary's problem was that instead of having a good way to spin not knowing something and kind of turning it around on them and then to get enough out of them to then answer it, instead he was just like, what is Aleppo? And like had these eyes like, what is that? And then when they said, you don't know, he went, no. Like if you watch it, he's like, high. Well, yeah. And that surprised, like, what? Wow. And then they're like, he's like, what is it? And they're like, you don't know what it is? And he's like, no. And then they're like, it's a city in Syria. And then he immediately gives a good answer about how we shouldn't be involved in Syria.
Fantastic answer. The answer was the best answer you can give on why we shouldn't be involved in Syria.
Yes. And of course,
we know that 100%.
Yes.
They did that 100% to get him in a gotcha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And
which is nothing.
if you watch that video, they've got these lights down on him. It looks like he's being interrogated. There's like 6 editors of major paper. There's like an editor of a paper and like they're like their main people on MSNBC. The editor in chief of MSNBC. They're just drilling him on questions. Let's see them do that to Joe Biden. Let's see 6 people have Joe Biden with freaking like giant floodlights down on him in a dark room saying, what about this? What about that? But what about this? And like the question before that had nothing to do with Aleppo or anything else. It had nothing to do with foreign policy. Like just hit him with that. Joe Biden would freaking stroke out. Like give me a break.
Joe Biden would do that thing where he himself and then stroke out.
He would just do that thing where he does this. And they go, what a humble man. Give me a break. Like that's, and again, I have plenty of criticisms of Gary Johnson. Most of them rhyme with Bill Weld. But I will not, at no point can people give Gary a hard time about that. And anyone who could, I want to see them. And I'll say this again. I've done stuff like that before. It's intense, guys. Like, I'd like to see one of y'all go up there. And anyone who wants to criticize him on that, go up there and have people pepper you with a bunch of questions and see if you like don't know the answer to one of them. And you you better have a good pre-prepared way of spinning stuff around to make them regret when they try to give you gotcha questions. And I've got that, and I still would be a little nervous before doing something set up quite like that. And I mean, the fact that he even did it.
I will 100% say what they were doing is they were trying to get him on a gotcha question there, but what is not a gotcha question is, what is your policy on anything? Like other presidential candidates we've had thought were gotcha questions.
Wait, was that a question to me?
No. Oh. That was just a statement to our listeners that other presidential candidates that we've had since then.
Oh gosh. I mean, listen, not all of us can be Joe Jorgensen.
Yes. In 1516, there was a town hall meeting on, I believe it was CNN, and Gary Johnson was asked about sex work.
Sex work?
Yeah, sex work. What is your position on that?
I would say that's not an issue that I've heard the voters are interested in. Let me tell you what my platform is, and I would probably talk about the income tax or something, because that's not something that concerns most voters. And I as libertarians, we are all, and I really don't want to, I hope I'm not putting my foot in my mouth. But we're all just a little geeky in that we've got answers for everything, and we've got great answers for everything, and we just can't wait to share our answers for everything. I was on the campaign trail in 1996 for the VP nomination, and somebody asked me a question about Bureau of Land Management, and by golly, I just read a book the week before, and I could tell them all about the Bureau of Land Management. The problem is the average person out there doesn't care. And so as libertarians, I think we need to restrain ourselves and to persuade people or find the people who agree with what we do agree with.
So you don't have a position on sex work?
Oh, I have a position. It's not part of the campaign to outreach to bring new people into the party.
So you wouldn't answer the question if you were on CNN live on a town hall today?
I would. The short answer is no. Wow. Okay, so now you're afraid to ask me.
We can't all be Joe Jorgensen. Incidentally, 52% of Americans, according to recent polling, support legalizing sex work. Just, by the way.
Was that from Marist?
No, it was from. Hold on, I can pull that up. It was The Hill that said it. The report. Yeah. To be fair, it was from a think tank that commissioned the poll called Data for Progress. Now, it's the only one that's been done recently on it. It's the only one that's been done recently on it.
The Scientific Libertarian just made like a deep cut reference.
Oh wow. Listen.
Yeah, that's a deep cut reference.
Imagine Whitney Cohen.
That would have been a completely different campaign. Good God.
Wow, would it? And how? So folks, Thanks so much for tuning in to this Jorgen-tastic episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. A Jorgen-tastic, a Switzerlandian episode, if you will. By the way,
Switzerland.
When I heard that Switzerland was not going to be neutral in this conflict and was engaging in the sanctions, I said, no one tell Joe. Because now we are one giant Switzerland. So I guess she won.
She got what she wanted.
She played the long game.
She did.
Jo Jorgensen played the long game.
She was waiting for Switzerland to
game gimp suits. So, folks, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom. We love you. Tune in tomorrow, Wednesday night. I will be joined by none other than three-party, not third-party, three-party, he's on 3 different party lines, candidate for New York Governor Larry Sharpe. Now, he's going to be talking about his campaign for governor, but that's not all he's going to be talking about. Larry's coming on to talk about our upcoming panel that we're doing together this Sunday in Austin, Texas, at a little event they have there called South by Southwest. We're going to be talking about third-party candidates and what we go through and what our purpose is and what we're trying to do. And that's going to be at South by Southwest. But Larry is joining me tomorrow night along with Lauren Postler and Joanna Jurgens, not Joe Jorgensen, Joanna Jurgens, who is a completely different person, to talk about the panel that we're putting together for South by Southwest and what we're going to do. And then on Thursday is Thursday is the Muddy. Thursday is the Muddied Zoom, where Matt and me and Jason and the rest of the Muddied crew join with you. And by you, I mean the people who have become members of Muddy Waters Media by going to anchor.fm/muddywaters/subscribe and become subscribers to Muddy Waters Media so that you can do many things, including joining us on the Muddied Zoom, which is on Thursdays. Well, one Thursday every month, including this coming Thursday. Then, on Friday, join me at the Libertarian Party. Well, is Jason doing his thing on Friday?
I don't know if he's still in the comments. So I believe, and don't quote me if I'm wrong, because it might be next week. I believe that Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, will be back Friday.
Yes.
At 2 Eastern. 2 p.m. Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern. And then join me.
Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern right here, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon, Muddy Waters Media. Then join me and the Libertarian Party of West Virginia as I will be in Martinsburg, West by God, Virginia. On Friday night, we'll be doing an event there, and on Saturday, they'll be beginning the convention, including a machine gun shoot. I'm going to be shooting machine guns. Will you join me there? Well, only if you go to lpwv.org and register now to shoot machine guns with me, the Machine Jew. Then, on Sunday, I will be in Austin, Texas, speaking at the South by Southwest event with Larry Sharpe, Lauren Postler, and Joanna Jurgens, and many other third-party candidates. We'll be talking about being third-party candidates and what that's like. Then, join us here on next Tuesday, for another fantabulous episode of the Muddy Waters of Freedom, where Matt Wright and I parse through the week's events like the chipper little monkey boys that we are.
So next Saturday, not when you're in West Virginia, but when, I don't know what you're doing next Saturday, because I don't look at your calendar then.
Nothing.
Next Saturday, me, Joe COVID Botham, Joe COVID Botham, Adam the Freeman, and I believe possibly Mohammed Shaker are going to be meeting up with Anthony Welty at a cookout, bonfire, and shooting event.
I want to do that.
Well, it's the 19th in Lakeland.
I want to go to Lakeland. Okay, well, we'll see what happens here. But then join us right back here next Tuesday, the Muddy Waters of Freedom, Matt Wright and I, 8 p.m. normal time, and we'll be parsing through the week's events like the chipper little middle-aged men that we are. Matt, if someone were trying to find Muddy Waters Media on the internet, is that even possible? And if so, how?
It is possible.
Wow.
If you are one of those insane people out there who don't enjoy looking into the glorious faces, the Nicholas Vieser-like faces. No, they're not. Not even
They're not. Really?
They're not. That guy
I've got a beard, but that's not.
I mean, that's about where that ends.
That's a lie.
That man is a male model.
That man is hot.
He is. He's a dashing human.
I have to get a pic. While you're talking, let me go ahead and get a picture of Nicholas Vieser so people can see. What
Nicholas Vieser, as I said earlier today, is the second most attractive human I have ever seen, and I'm marrying the other one. And I am not attracted to men, but Nicholas Vieser is an attractive human being. If you don't like looking into these steely blues from either side of this screen and instead enjoy listening to the smooth, sultry sounds of our voices, all you have to do is head on over to anchor.fm/muddiedwaters.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
You forgot about this part, didn't you?
I was looking at pictures of Nicholas Vieser.
I get it. You get lost in his eyes.
I got distracted. I'm so sorry.
I know. I get how that happens.
Oh, my gosh. Look at it.
While you're there, you can do things like leave us messages about your colonoscopy. Or not that.
Or something entirely different,
that.
Please.
Please not that.
Please do something else.
Please just ask us questions about foreign policy or the tax code.
Domestic.
You can even ask us about the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania's convention if you want. I don't care. Just please.
You can even ask us about sex work. We're not going to.
You can ask us about. Yeah, we will answer the question.
We'll tell you about our thoughts on taxes.
We will tell you. Yes, we will. We will tell you our thoughts on taxes.
Yes.
But you can also subscribe where you can, for less than the cost of 2 lattes a month from Starbucks, or less than the cost of 2 gallons of gas in many areas of this country.
Possibly 1 gallon by the time you're listening to this.
That's a valid point. You can get things like discounts to the Muddied Waters store.
Amazing.
I don't think I think the stitches and glitches one is gone. You get a discount to the Muddied Waters store. You get access to exclusive content. You get
to go on the
access
the Muddied Zoom.
The Muddied Zoom. The Scientific Libertarian says Arvin Vora is still the worst, though, and I have to agree with the Scientific Libertarian that Arvin Vora is the worst.
The Muddied Zoom.
The Muddied Zoom. Or you can find this in every other episode at muddiedwatersmedia.com.
Absolutely. Be sure to subscribe today. Become a member of the Muddied Mudders, the mud skipping mud people. Anchor.fm/muddywatersmedia. No, anchor.fm/muddywaters/subscribe to subscribe today. This is Nicholas Vieser. Look at that.
Look at that guy.
That's not even a good picture of him.
That's not a good picture.
Oh my gosh, look at him.
That's not a good picture of him, but man, that guy, he is
That's
dashing. Just dashing.
That's a pretty man.
That's a pretty man.
That guy's a pretty man.
I like I tell him that all the time. I'm like, you're just a dashing human, just a dashing person.
That man's a sexy man.
He is, and I hope to God he listens to this episode and he messages me to be like, "What the fuck is wrong with
This
you?"
is very uncomfortable. Yeah, no, it's
I understand you're not stalking me, but please stop telling me how attractive I am.
Well, folks,
I'm married and you're getting married. Please stop.
Yeah. No, we're all married or nearly married heterosexual men here. I can say someone's sexy and it not be weird.
Depends on how many times you say it, I think, over the course of 10 minutes.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Money, Waters, Freedom. See you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I know. And then we'll see you this whole week, and we'll see you back here next week. And we love you very much. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.